Welcome back to the show. I'm starting with a little bit of a dramatic music because I'm going to be talking about how difficult it is to let go of that guy that seems to have such a dramatic impact in your life, and he seems to not go away from your thoughts, and he seems to obsess, and every movie you watch and every song you hear, it seems to be about him. And it's like, what is going on, and how do we stop this craziness? So if I want to just tap into this, because I know that so many of you are going through this, and I've been through this many, many times, where we get obsessed with somebody. And I don't even know if I should say obsessed, really. It's more of a, it's like we feel this strong connection. We feel this strong draw. And it's really frustrating because you go back and forth, and you have days where you're like, what was I thinking? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this feeling hits you, especially if it's right after or right during, or this guy is kind of torturing you with this back and forth. So it's hard to encompass all the different types, but I feel like I can kind of narrow this down to a few things. So number one, I always say, because I've read extensively about the Gottman Institute, about friendship, and we talk a lot about, if he's not your friend, then you really don't have a foundation. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, just because I think that even though that might be true, it's like it still doesn't help. And I'm actually developing this, it's an academy that I'm going to teach live, but I'm going to eventually make it an online course that you can buy at any time. And I got to this point where we've developed 6 stages, and we're at stage 3. And I was working with my assistant on it, and at about stage 3, I'll talk to you guys more about that. But there's this point where it's like, okay, you've got to the point where you realize he's not the guy, but realizing he's not the guy is a really big deal. And when I was talking to her, she's married and she hasn't gone through gumball guy experiences, which I always like people helping me develop content that haven't had the experience, because then they see the very logical next step decisions, and they aren't caught up in the people that have had gumball guy experiences. I've had them help me with content, and they get so wrapped up in their personal stories that they literally cannot focus on, okay, let's talk about the next step and the next step. They get continually talking about their stories. So that's why I have people helping me that can just, really help clearly see the next step. So when we got to this point, I was like, well, yeah, the next step is a breakup, but it's not realistic. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, what your girls would get it? Like, they know they're supposed to break up. I'm like, oh, I know they get it. But I know how hard it is to be so attracted to this type of guy. And I know what a gut punch it is to realize he's not the guy. And I also know the process of going through and like what you have to do to shake him from your life. And these guys come in, and you don't expect it. It's like they come out of nowhere sometimes. And a lot of times they don't necessarily display the classic gumball guy, or it's somebody that has been in your life maybe as a friend or as a coworker, or somebody that you developed feelings for slowly over time, and you see all of their good qualities. But then there's a point where you decide, or you cross a line, or you go on a date, or he says he's interested, or you say you're interested, or whatever, or you actually have had a whole relationship and you're at the breakup point, or you've already broken up, but you keep going back. You keep fantasizing about what could be, or what was, or why couldn't something so good work? Because you can see him struggling with it. And that's what's so difficult. So I'm going to try my hardest to capture your story within all of these different angles. And please reach out to me. I will answer your emails. I will answer your DMs. So always feel free to reach out. If you start going through a huge story and you're like, Melissa, what should I do? I'm going to suggest a one-on-one session because I need to see your face and I want to be able to talk to you and know what I can say and what I can't say, because everybody's a little bit different. I coach each client very individually. So I hate to start giving advice because I know how sensitive these things are, but sometimes we can have a nice conversation via DM. But I want to hear from you because sometimes maybe if you can't do a one-on-one session, then I can take your question or your story and do a podcast and, share it like this. So this podcast is a result of my personal experiences and then taking in all of those DMs and really trying to help all of us through that struggle of letting go. And it's not just about letting go. It's about gaining clarity on who we're fantasizing about so that we can actually get strength and see it differently. So I think the biggest struggle that we have with these guys is that we can see the weakness in there, right? We can see, and I don't even know if I should say weakness, but we can see the guy who wants what we have to offer. He wants what you have. He kind of needs what you have. He's attracted to you. He talks about being with you. He talks about you being the kind of girl that he wants to be with, that he would ideally choose. But then he also stays at a distance. He hides. He says he just can't be enough. He doesn't feel like he's enough. And so sometimes I believe that these are really games that they're playing, because when we pursue them, it makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel like, okay, yeah, she wants me, but they reject it at the same time. Because if he says, okay, let's do this, let's try this relationship, he takes the chance that you will reject him later. So it's like if he stays at a distance, then you don't really get a chance to know him. Because if you get a chance to really know him and then you reject him anyway, then that means what? That he's really not worthy, that there's something is really wrong with him. Like if he allows the journey and the exploration. I remember thinking at one point, why won't you just allow us to explore it? If we don't explore it, if I don't get the chance to really do this, then we can stand here with all this tension. We can stand here with all of this potential. But without really exploring it, we don't really know what's here. And you'll get deer in the headlights with those kinds of comments because it's almost like really revealing to them what they're not willing to do. Because they can stand there, and this is getting a little deep. So if you haven't been through these dynamics, you're like, what? And then if you've been through this a couple of times, you're like, oh my God, this is exactly what happens. But you know what I mean? Like you're standing there in those moments, those raw moments where it's like, hey, I'm being vulnerable here. I'm saying I like you, or maybe you've already expressed that you love them, or that you are willing to go the long road with them. You're willing to say, okay, I'm all in. Let's do this. Or maybe it's not even that serious. Maybe you're like, hey, I like you. You like me. We're here. We're on a date. Like, why is it so intense? And this gets back to, if you followed my content, the Gumball Guy is always intense, because intensity always turns up that volume on every situation. Where when you date a guy that's healthier, he's much more calm and lighthearted, because healthier people take their time. But with a gumball guy, it's very difficult for him to take his time because he can't stand the unknown. It's like, oh my gosh, if I go on a date with you and then we go on another date and it's just a gradual process, it drives him nuts because he wants to know, are you into me? Do you like me? How much do you like me? Because he's anticipating rejection all the time. And maybe that should be the underlying theme to this, that the guy that sometimes we think we want is always anticipating rejection. And so I wanted to say his tactic, but I really think it's more his reaction is to reject first, to push you back so that you are inclined to pursue more. So it makes him more comfortable if you are pursuing him. And then he might, what happens is when he rejects you or says, I don't think this can work, or I don't know if I can do this at this point in my life, yet he's initiated contact. He's initiated a date. He's reached out. This is where it's like, okay, you're texting me, you're asking me out, you're spending time with me. And then all of a sudden you're like, but I can't do this. And this isn't, it's like, okay, so you can see that there's a conflict, right? So if you step back and you see him as a man that is anticipating rejection, then this type of behavior it really makes sense. But if you're to say to him, look, you're here pursuing and you're exploring, but then it's like you brought the ship to the new land and then you're standing on the edge, or maybe you even got off the boat, but you keep talking about getting back on the boat. So are you getting back on the boat, or are you going to explore this land here? Because you came all the way here, you drove your boat over, you docked it, and now you're standing on the dock. And we're sitting here, I'm on the dock with you, but there's this whole other land to explore. So we have to make a decision. And so that at that point he starts saying things like, I don't really know if I need to be here. This boat's fine, and I have other places I wanted to see it. I don't know, but he took the effort to go there. So you're like, what is going on? Because you're so excited to explore that land. But he feels like if he does explore it and it doesn't turn out to be what he thought, he can't handle that kind of failure. So it takes a therapist, an educated, experienced therapist, to dissect your specific guy and tell you exactly what his fears are and why. Because there are so many different men that come to the table with a lot of issues from childhood, but the underlying thing is confidence, right? He doesn't have the confidence to say, hey, you know what? I might have failure here, but I've come this far, so I'm going to go for it. It's kind of like me with Gumball Love. I've come this far, and it's difficult in this online space and sharing your personal stuff and putting your heart out there and getting in front of a camera every day. And I could say, I'm going to stop, but I've come this far and I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to risk failure, because if I just took the rope back into the boat and sailed past, I would never know what could have happened. And I discovered that in the last academy. I did 2 academies and met 14 women that I wouldn't have met. And their lives were literally changed. They left relationships. They moved out. He moved out. Divorces happened. Major monumental life changes happened with every single woman that went through the academy. And I thought, man, what if I had just been too afraid? So we have to find guys that are willing to go, hey, I I'm scared. We're all a little bit scared, and maybe we're very scared. But the reward, if it works, can be worth a lifetime of happiness, a lifetime of partnership with someone. So sometimes when we're standing in front of them, we're like, I don't want to be with anyone else but you. And you are good looking, and I like the way you smell, and I like the way you think, and the way you laugh, and your sense of humor, and the way you move, and the way you speak. And when we're into all of that stuff, it is just so frustrating to see the other person allow fear to dictate. They think a lot of times, guys, when we're pursuing insecure men, they find the things about us that make them inferior. So it might be your job, how much money you make, the clothes you wear. They'll look at things and be like, yeah, but I had a guy tell me that I had matching furniture. He's like, you have matching furniture. I mean, I was much younger at the time, but it was like, okay, I have matching furniture, but he was still living with his parents and he just couldn't see himself at my level. And I was looking at him like, so what? I had passed, I think I was like 4 years older than him or something. And so I was working out of school, but he had chosen to go to grad school. And so I had huge respect for him because he was pursuing a higher education and his goals were different. So I didn't expect him to be in his own apartment and having matching furniture. I wasn't even thinking about that. It didn't matter to me at all because I wasn't dating his furniture. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't matter to me that he lived with his parents because I could see he wasn't a guy just playing video games and living with his parents. He had much higher goals and he was extremely smart. And so I could see who he was. But you know what? He couldn't see it. And he couldn't see it enough he didn't have enough confidence. So you have to have enough confidence in yourself that you can sit comfortable in your skin so that you can experience someone else fully. But if you're not comfortable enough in your own skin, then you are not going to be able to experience them. Does that make sense? Like, if I'm so worried about who I am, then I'm going to sort of be in a bubble. Like, if you imagine if you're sitting across from anyone at a table, and you've probably sat across from somebody. Have you ever sat across from a girl who's like looking in the mirror and fixing her lipstick and kind of looking around, and then she looks at someone else's outfit, and then she looks at her outfit, and you're like, oh my God, you want to have lunch with her, but it's like, okay, can you focus on us and our conversation? Because she's consumed with how she looks. And so she's not really present in the lunch, and you don't feel like anything you say is really going to be heard because she's not comfortable enough in her own skin. So she's not going to have an experience with you and experience your friendship because she's not really there. So hold on a second. I have to plug this in here. Sorry, I don't edit anything out. My podcasts are like super real here. I just realized my computer wasn't plugged in. So I was going to say the opposite experience. I was having lunch with my friend Stephanie yesterday or day before, and we had gone to dance, and then we were like, oh, let's go grab coffee or lunch. And neither one of us, like, we're both sweaty from dancing and we were starving. And so we just went and grabbed a meal. And neither one of us were focused on how we looked or anything. We were just completely into the conversation. And it was so comforting because she can see who I am. I can see who she is. And there's such a relaxed feeling of knowing that that person is really hearing you and you're really hearing them and you're synced. So I'm saying that because when we obsess over a guy because we feel this romantic attraction to them, and we feel like we think about things like, I just want to be touched. I just want to be held. I just want, like, you want his you want his affection. You want his adoration. You want that feeling of closeness. I remember thinking about this before I came up with this concept, and I was really yearning for that secure feeling that you get when you're in their arms and they're looking at you and you feel seen and heard and loved. But that is very different than just because you can get affection from the gumball guy. You can lay in his arms and he can look at you like that. But he's not really present. He's thinking, I'm not enough. She needs more. I need this. I need that. Like, I've dated so many guys where they're like, I remember another guy who said, you have your own house and he's like, I have nothing to offer you. And I was thinking, but he could look at me in the eyes and hold me. And I remember being held by him and looking in his eyes and thinking, oh my gosh, this is the guy. And he would say things like, I would marry you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you're the kind of girl I would want to marry, because they see the value that you bring, but they can't see their own value. It's so sad. And so my reaction to that in the past was to try to pump them up and try to make them feel better. Like, what do you mean? I'm not looking for that. I'm this. I have what I need financially. I'm sure you do too. I mean, sure, we all joke about marrying the rich husband, but like, that's when guys say that to us and we're not really looking for wealth. It always pisses me off, because that means that they are not comfortable in their own skin. They can't see who you really are. If you ask any of my girlfriends, is Melissa looking for a rich husband? All of them would say, no, I'm not looking for that. It's because money, I just bought new furniture like a month ago. I'm already used to it. It's like, and I thought about that. I was like, you know what, but my old furniture was so bad. It was like, not that I would go back to the old, but it's not like, oh my gosh, when I walk in and I see this furniture, I am happier. No, I knew it wouldn't make me happier. I just needed to have furniture that was more of a reflection of where I am. And I just wanted to feel more organized in my place. It was more of a feeling of organization and having systems in place and not having something that was just, worn out microfiber. I just needed to replace and make things more current and blah, blah, blah. But I know this about myself, and most of us are this way. Anything you buy, I don't care if it's Chanel or Gucci or Louis Vuitton, eventually it's just a purse. Eventually it's been hanging in your closet for 6 months and you're over it. Like, everything could be like, I could have a yacht, and eventually it's just a boat. And you go out on the water and you're like, yep, I'm out on the water and I can have cucumber sandwiches while I'm riding around in the boat. Like, it's not going to make you happy. So if there's a guy that I was mildly attracted to that had all that money, I would be grossed out. I don't want that. I would rather I'd rather take the subway and go have a romantic, I remember one guy made me a picnic in the park, and we had, for dessert, it was mini Snicker bars, and we went bike riding, and the whole thing probably cost, $10, and it's perfectly fine. Like, if guys only knew that if they were just comfortable in who they were and they owned where they were, and they said, look, I can't take you out on, and they wouldn't have to declare they couldn't take us out on fancy dates. But if they just put the effort in and owned where they were and just could have a good time, that's all we want, right? I mean, that's all I would want. I guess I hate when you speak for other people, but I think people that are looking for authentic love and a real relationship understand that we're looking for the person. We're not looking for the money or what they can provide. Yes, there's a certain degree of, I don't want somebody who has no work ethic and that doesn't have any motivation or drive or goals and dreams. That's completely different. If that person is just choosing or is lazy, then that's a different story. But if somebody has a vocation that doesn't really earn them a lot of money, but they're good at it, they're happy doing it, and their life is happy, that's what's important. But see, a lot of times a guy will have a lifestyle that he doesn't think is good enough for you, but he wants to be with you still. He flirts with the idea. He comes around to get a taste every once in a while. Hey, I miss you. How are you? What are you up to? Want to hang out? Want to grab a drink? And he can dream about it. He can spend time with it. It's kind of like if we were to go shopping and we could wear Chanel for a few hours, but we knew we couldn't really afford it. We'd have to take it back. It's kind of what they're doing. They're trying it on. They're playing with it, but then they can't really, they feel like they can't afford it. It's sort of like, let's say you really had the money and you really could pay for it, but you didn't think you did. So you spent all this time with something that you didn't think you could have. Let's say that, this is like so bad with these metaphors, but let's say you really could afford it and you just didn't realize you could. But think about how you would feel about wearing it, knowing that you had to give it back. It would start to feel bittersweet. You'd start to get annoyed or angry and feel frustrated because, the fabric feels so good. And, high-end clothing is tailor-made and it's just so great. But when you have to give it back at the end, or when you were anticipating having to, or that you couldn't keep it, that becomes very frustrating. And so that's what these guys go through. And as loving women, we want to help them. We want to help them see how we see them. We want to give them like, hey, that's not how I feel. And this is how I feel. And we want to explain this, but you can't change how they see themselves. Because they'll take it as, no, you're just, it's like, no, you're just feeling sorry for me, or no, I can't, like, they can't hear it. They can't hear it. It's so frustrating. And so on the negative side, sometimes guys like this will be more abusive with their so-called power because they know that you want them, but they don't feel like they're enough, yet they will still abuse your time. Or they will give you the impression that they will be that kind of guy, or maybe they can, or I don't know. And they feel so tortured. And a lot of guys realize that they can get a lot of attention from playing the I'm tortured. So then he can run and hide. Like, I want, but I'm going to hide. I want, but I'm going to hide. I'm here, now I'm not. I'm here, now I'm not. So when he's not there, it creates a bigger desire for him and then more confusion. So I'm trying to clear up the confusion that, look, I was thinking about this before I did the podcast. Like, we have to realize that it is not up to him to decide how this goes. Like, you are, what's the word? Like, you are worthy of being at the table and equally making the decision. You need to feel like inside, like, look, I like you, but if you are going to play games, or you're going to hide, or you're not going to be present, or you're not going to be consistent, then I'm not going to play this game. Like, you don't get any of my time. And it doesn't mean you have to get mad and say this. I'm just kind of saying this, like, internally, we have to stop accepting this half-ass, like, pussyfooting around, being in hot and cold. I'm lukewarm. I don't know. I'm just so tortured, and pity me. And now I want to be with you. Now, like, all this back and forth and random texting, it's disrespectful. It's rude. It's immature. But it puts him in the position where he makes all of these decisions of where the relationship is going or not going. And I want you to feel like, look, you can take control of this. And you deserve to have equal control in the relationship. You don't need to be jerked around by this guy's whims and back and forth and I want, but I can't. I want, but I can't. I want, but I can't. Because it puts you in a position where you're sitting alone feeling this anguish, this heart-wrenching pain. Because you've experienced just enough to where even that very beginning stage of what you experience can be so powerful. The attraction can be insane, right? You can feel so attracted, so enamored. Everything they do is attractive. And there's a lot of lust. Like you want to be close to them, you want to have sex with them, you want to kiss them. Like there's all these thoughts, and a lot of music is around that feeling. But if we take that sexual drive and energy and lust out of it, and then we just break this guy down and say, what does this low confidence, high passionate guy have to offer and on a Thursday when I got bad news at work? You know what I mean? Like we have to pour the reality on it so that we can see, okay, yeah, all right. So what if he's, what if you, when you lose that it's not like you're going to lose the attraction, but it's not going to be as intense. So when the intensity goes away, what happens then? What happens after? Is he really your friend? Is he really even supportive? Is he really there for you? Can you actually have real conversations, deep conversations where he's asking questions and getting to know you? Like I would think back to all these different relationships and think, God, they were never really asking and sometimes they were, but it was like not ever consistent. Like if I think back to most scumball guys, they would know about my family and my job, but it wasn't as like they would have asked the right questions. But it's not like if you sit down with a friend and you just feel that calm that you can talk through things and you're not rushed and they're really going to help you work through a problem and stay focused on you. Because you know how it is when your friend calls you and she has a problem, you stay focused on her and you work through it and you can hear her turmoil and you can hear her stress. And so you're like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you doing? And then you follow up later. How's that going? Blah, blah, blah. It's usually not like that with the gumball guy. He'll have, sometimes he has amazing moments where he's really available and you have this great night. But then the next day it feels off and then you're like, okay, so why is the mood different? And you're always just questioning where things are and how he feels. And then he'll be so cold. And then the next day he's like, hey, how are you? It's so good to see you. And you're like, oh my God. Okay. So maybe he was just having a bad day. And then it happens again. And there's just all this uncertainty around it. So I don't know another way to talk to you about this, to make it more organized. I made notes and it's like, I can't even follow the notes because this is just messy. It's a messy podcast. This is a messy process because you're just so confused of this inconsistent behavior and it's hot and it's cold and you want it, but you know it's bad for you. But how do you really make it? How do you get over the gut-wrenching feeling and that, how do you stop your heart from wanting it? And so there's that, there's the metaphor about, God, I can't remember, the good and the bad or something. It's like whatever you feed is going to get bigger. So if I feed the fantasy, then I'm going to get tortured by what could be. But if I feed reality, my brain is going to focus on getting my feet on the ground. When we're feeding the fantasy and we're imagining things, or we go back to romantic moments, or we go back to when he was at his best, and it's not like we pretend, but we can kind of live there a little bit too much. And then you add music to the background. This is why I tell you to be really careful with music, or if you're going to listen to the music and you're going to go back to a moment, ask yourself in that moment, like, what am I imagining? We're sitting in this romantic spot and he was nervous to kiss me, and I could tell he was feeling like you could see this guy who normally has, he looks all cool and put together, but all of a sudden he's with you, and you can see that oh my gosh, he's nervous and he didn't know what to do in that moment. And there's that vulnerability. And it's like if they only knew that vulnerability makes them so sexy, yet as soon as we show them, we see it, then they want to hide again. And it's just immaturity, right? So we're always trying to sneak up to this guy hiding and not scare him away. We're sneaking up to the guy hiding, hoping not to scare him away. And also hoping to not reveal to him that we can see that he's hiding. Because you're on the other side going, yeah, you think that I'm super confident over here? Like I'm vulnerable too. When we're admitting feelings, it's very nerve-wracking. It's like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen either. It could be great. It could be a disaster, but I'm here. So you're the more mature one going, hey, I'm willing, I'm ready, let's do this. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the dock and explore the land. But often our whole relationship with a gumball guy is between the boat and we're on the boat dock. Sometimes he hasn't even gotten off the boat. You're standing on the boat like, okay, are we going to go? The land is the relationship that you would have together. The boat represents him leaving. And so it's like we're in this limbo stage. And a lot of times we stand on the dock and he leaves. And then we look at the land that we could have explored together, and now we're on it alone. Because he's too afraid that it wouldn't work out, or something would happen in that land, or he's not enough, or he wouldn't have been able to provide, or whatever. I know, sorry for my bad metaphors, but I'm hoping you're getting the picture. Like, I want you to, this is the one thing that when this has happened to me post Gumball Love, where I'm so grateful for this concept, because now I see the guy hiding, where before I would be in tears. I would be so sad. I would be like, how can you see such amazing potential and walk away? I don't understand how you can walk away. Like, why am I not enough? And oh my God, I would just be so like emotional. Like, how is it that I feel this and you don't? But you know what? A lot of times they do feel it and they want it. But they are just terrified. They're terrified because they feel so much that being rejected by you it's like the rejection or the potential of it is so devastating in their minds, they can't go forward. It paralyzes them. And so I'm saying this to you so that as you process the fantasy of him and the things that you wanted, the things that you experienced, the things that you hoped, were not made up. They could have happened. But the thing is, he's got to fix what's wrong with him first. You can't fix it. I will tell you that before I discovered all of this, I didn't feel worthy to date somebody that I would have considered out of my league. Like I would have seen like a really successful businessman in New York City, years ago. Like I would have felt like I don't know how to sit at a table with him or have a conversation or feel comfortable in my own skin with him. Like I would have been really intimidated by that. And I had to do a tremendous amount of work on myself to gain the confidence. And now I don't even think about it. I sit, I smile. I'm so enjoying my time in New York. I've never had more guys. Like I was typically a girl that never got hit on, and now I'm getting approached all the time. And I'm so comfortable. Like I can have normal conversations. I don't feel insecure when a guy is, I shouldn't say like hit on, but it's like, that sounds like such a bad term, but you know what I'm saying? Like I'm getting approached and conversations are happening much more often than they ever have. And it's because I'm comfortable in my own skin, but I worked so hard to get there. And I recognized my insecurity, and I read books and went to seminars and worked on myself and invested in therapy because I wanted to be a good partner for somebody. So I couldn't have done it 5 years ago. And so if I'm talking to a guy that's in that stage and he has no intention of working on himself, then you know what I'm saying? Like how do I get that guy to be confident? You've got to have the experiences. I mean, look, those of you following my dance journey, I mean, just in the last 8 months, dancing has brought such a huge confidence in my life because of what it forced me to do. Even it was like it was related to dance, yet it wasn't related to dance. But all of those things were just part of the process. So if I meet somebody who really wants to be with me, but he's not willing to go through the process, he can't even recognize that that's the problem, that his confidence level is why he can't connect, has nothing to do with, like, sometimes you want to say to these guys, don't tell me what I don't want or what I need that you can't provide. Don't tell me that I'm high maintenance or that I want expensive things or whatever. Like that's them projecting their own insecurity onto you. So, and it also reveals that they don't really know you, right? When guys say, I can't give you what you want and you want a lot of things, it's like, then if you're really not that kind of person, but they haven't been able to see that, it's sort of devastating. I've experienced this a few times where it's like, wow, what you're saying to me means you really don't know me. And here I've been talking to you all this time, thinking that you get me, and you don't. Because the friends that know me know that I'm not into designer clothes. I've worn the same diamond stud earrings and the same ring that looks expensive, but really I got in a hotel gift shop. I mean, I don't buy expensive jewelry. I don't buy expensive clothes. I like to look nice and I put myself together, but it's just not important to me. It's not. So when people can't see that and then they make an assumption, I'm not good enough for you because you want all these things. And you're like, but I really don't. And then you can't see that. So it means you're not really getting to know me, which means you're not really connecting with me, which means we're not really building a friendship underneath this. So what is it? What is it then? And if it's shallow. So, and that's the most devastating part to it all. It's like, okay, so what you're seeing and what I'm seeing are two different things. This is what I really made the connection with. And my major gumball guy in my life, the one that I really, really wanted to be with, we were just seeing each other totally differently. He couldn't see the real me because he couldn't accept my unconditional love. I said this to him about 3 years ago. No, 2 years ago. We talked because I was going to tell him, hey, look, I'm going to be putting this Gumball Love stuff out and it's a lot of it's going to be about you. And he was okay with it. And I said to him, do you finally see that I really did love you? And he said, yeah. I do now. 8 years later. I mean, like 10 years ago was when we first started dating. And I was like, he couldn't see that I actually just loved him. And I really don't think that he can accept love even to this day. Like, he needs to be able to have a marriage. And that's where it becomes tragic, because we can have attraction, infatuation, desire. We have all these emotions. You could totally fall in love with them. But if they can't accept your love because they haven't loved themselves first, they don't say, hey, you know, I am what I am, but I love who I am. And this is where I like, at this point for me, I'm like, hey, this is me. I've done a ton of work on myself. If this isn't enough for you at this point, I'm not the right person for you. And I feel 100% confident walking away from a guy, because it's like, I can't work for love. I can't be something different. And I can grow and I can learn, but there comes a point when you reach a certain confidence level where you know, hey, if I'm not the person for you, then thank you for letting me know, because I'm not a chameleon and I can't become all the things that you want me to be. So that's how confident we need our guys to be. We need to be meeting guys that are also on that same level. But here's the beauty of that. 2 confident people that meet each other will seem the most lighthearted, because intensity would feel weird when you're confident, because when you're confident and you're dating, it's like fun, because you're enjoying yourself in your own body. He's enjoying himself in his own body. So you just want to go do fun stuff and have experiences together, because you're not trying to download everything on day one. And that's a lot of times what the gumball guy is trying to do. He's trying to download everything on day one, week one, because he's so afraid of rejection. So he's trying to like put it all out on the table, and it's very awkward. It gets too intense. It's too much. And the more confident you get in yourself, you'll see this more and more, and you'll be able to filter more and more, and it'll become so much easier, and it won't be as much of a struggle. But I'll tell you, every once in a while, you might have somebody come into your life. I've had this happen to me, where somebody comes in and it's an unexpected attraction. It's in a relationship you didn't really intend on happening, but it happened, and you're dealing with these emotions. But this is how you talk yourself through it. Does this person even see you? Can they really connect with you? Are they someone that can be in your everyday life? Do they fit into your life? Can you be the fullest expression of yourself? Can they handle you? Can they handle the level of success that you have without comparing it to themselves? Can they see the person? Because, you know, there are successful women. I know many successful women, but it's kind of like, at the end of the day, you know, I'm not sitting next to the guy with a podcast mic. At the end of the day, you know, you take off your makeup, you put on your pajamas, and you want to watch Friends. And it's like, I feel like at the end of the day, no matter what jobs everybody has, you need that person that you can just be vulnerable and with no makeup and a messy bun and in your jammies with your dog and watching TV and be equal and just be comfortable. Because it's like everybody has fears and everybody has insecurities, but you need to be able to be with that person and not have them put you on such a pedestal that you feel like you're looking down at them or they're looking down at you, because it doesn't work. So as much as you can see how he's like, oh, you're just so this and you're just so that. When you hear that the guy is like putting you way up there on the pedestal and he just doesn't know if he can be right for you, don't try to lower yourself. Look at him like, oh man, that's so sad that he can't see how great he is. That I would like him for just who he is, but he's doing that to himself, and there's nothing I can do to help him. He's going to have to see his own insecurity. He's going to have to do the work on himself. Otherwise, he'll never be able to build a connection. He'll never be able to sit there. He'll be the guy that's sitting there across the table, just like the girl I explained, like putting her makeup on and looking around and fixing her hair and looking around who's seeing her. Like, you can't connect with her. And you can't connect with a guy that's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have enough money and that job. And I mean, what does she expect? And does she, is this outfit stupid? And does she want that guy over there? I feel like she wants a different kind of guy. I mean, I remember dating guys where they're like, I just feel like you want that guy over there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, guys I worked with, I think you want a guy that, like the guy that you work with. I'm like, what are you even saying? I'm with you. If I wanted that guy, I'd be dating him. Like, or I wouldn't be dating you if I wanted that kind of guy. But it's like, again, we're having conversations about their insecurities and we're trying to fix their insecurity and we can't. I hope this makes sense. I feel like I am all over the place. Maybe I'm not. Sometimes I listen back. I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it feels all over the place, but this is the risk in letting a podcast like this go out. But you know what? Here's the deal. With me, you're always going to get raw, deep, and real answers. This is the real shiznizzle that we need to get through this stuff. Don't give me a list of the 10 things that the guy wants. BS. That's not how you get through this. You got to know, does this guy have the fundamental tools to go through life? Because it's not just about romance. It's about being able to function through jobs and buying homes, apartments, cars, having children, school district decisions, meals and gym memberships and family dynamics and arguments with, coworkers. I mean, it's all the things that life brings. And if one person is constantly is having a pity party, so to speak, you can't function in that. You can't function in that kind of relationship. So I hope this helped you. I'm going to end here. I'm going to see how what you think and what your emails us all say, and then I may come back and do more about different parts of this topic. But really, this is about working through the mess of feeling attracted to somebody that really is not right for you, and how to push through that in the healthiest way, keeping your head on straight, keeping your feet on the ground, not getting too caught up in those fantasy moments. Like, just remember, the way he was that night in the park is not who he is every day. The way he was with champagne and roses is not who he is every day. The way he was when he remembered to bring wine into the movie theater. It was one of my dates. I was like, oh my gosh, he brought wine. And I was like, do you have wine glasses? Of course. I was like, oh my gosh. This was a guy that thought I was too much eventually, that he would have married me and would want to be with me. So he was so nervous on a date, trying to do all these things right, and then was super romantic. And we went to a movie and he pulls out wine glasses and a bottle of wine. And so romantic, right? And it's so great, but he just couldn't follow through in the other days. I mean, he just failed the other days because he just did not, his opinion of himself was so low that he just felt so embarrassed to show up the next day. And I was just so attracted to him and so excited to be with him. Like, he could have shown up in, man prees. And I would have been like, well, I don't like the man prees, but I still want to hang out with you. You know what I mean? Like, when we're into somebody, we just don't care. We're in, and we're willing to overlook a lot of things. And so that's the kind of guy we need to be spending our time with, is the one that is just comfortable in his own skin, who has done the work on himself or had a healthy upbringing where he didn't require a lot of work. He was raised well and comes to the table with a happy, positive vibe. And I will tell you, I'm going to end on this. The number one thing that I want you to look for in a guy is a positive attitude, a genuine positive attitude, and an attitude of gratitude, and just a person that's just excited about life in general, because they've gotten things figured out. Like, I may not have everything, but I'm grateful and I'm happy to be here and I'm excited, and that it is consistent. That's also something we want to look for, is consistent. That he is happy and is just wanting to do fun things and have fun experiences. And of course, he can be serious as well. But someone with a positive attitude, it says a lot about their journey and what's behind them to form that result in that positive attitude. And because then that tells you that's their go-to, that they're going to go to positive. They're not going to go to the negative. They're not going to feel that they have passed or have never had a low self-esteem. And so when they don't have a low self-esteem and you're attracted to them and they are willing to have experiences with you, that's when you've got a great guy. And this is when I really want you to pay attention. Like, okay, when you're on a date and you're having a good time and he's got a positive attitude and he's taking things at a normal pace and you're just enjoying yourself, this might feel like, okay, is this enough? Because he's not being super intense and it's like, yes, this is the good. This is when it's great. And you just have to be like, okay, even though we didn't like have an amazing, intense, romantic experience, we had a really good time. And he's going to want to do that again and again and again and again and again. And it's going to layer and layer and layer and layer. And eventually you will have intense, romantic, and wonderful times, but they're going to be so much more meaningful because he's not going to be hiding. He's not going to hide because he doesn't have a reason to. He would be like, where would I go? He's the guy that shows up on the boat, docks it, and goes, okay, let's go. There's no conversation on the dock. He's just going because he doesn't think of anything else. Let's do it. I'm in. Does that make sense? All right. I hope this really helped you. I feel good about it. So I'm going to end here, and please reach out to me, direct message me. And if you're not in our private Facebook group, because I know some of this is really personal, go to my Facebook like page. It's facebook.com/Coach Melissa Leger, Leger. So it's MELISSA Coach Melissa Leger. And at the very top pinned is a link to the private Facebook group. You can go in there and you can talk a little bit more freely, and everybody's awesome in there. And it's just, it's a little more private. It's not like all your Facebook friends are going to see it. So it's a private group. So only the people in the group can see what you post. But I will tell you, make sure that you're in the group. It'll say private Facebook group at the top. One time someone posted something on the like page that's public. So be careful that you're actually in the private group. So until next time, I will talk to you soon. And I wish you the best, and I want you to be free of this. So cheers to freedom and to finding the guy that's ready, that's positive, that's excited about life, and that isn't thinking about that you're too much. He's thinking, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She has so much to offer, and I'm so excited to go on this journey and explore, because when you bring all that you bring to the table, guess what you offer? Adventure.